Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Thursday to you today. I hope everyone is keeping well and you're having a good afternoon or evening or middle of the day, depending on what part of the world you are in. So, welcome to this Altenew YouTube Live. My name is Sara Newman, and I'm excited to be with you this evening. I'll be chatting a little bit as folks are jumping on. Tonight we're going to have the lovely Orem with us from Altenew, and she will be joining us and keeping us all on pace with all of the different stamps and dies and stencils that we will be playing with this evening. So welcome everybody. I'm really glad you're here. If you are new to Altenew's lives, either here on YouTube or on Facebook, you probably know that we have a little tradition where if you share tonight's live while we are live, then you could be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So, hi Susie. She says, hi ho campers. Hi Susie, good to see you dropping in. Welcome. With the sharing while we're live, what you need to do is post down in the comments below that you shared tonight's video, and then just let us know how you shared. And then you will be automatically entered into a $15 gift certificate drawing for the Altenew store. And Orem will be choosing somebody at random at the end of tonight's session. So you have the entire time that we're here together to do that. So hopefully you will get a chance to share that however you prefer. But do be sure to post it down below so Orem will know. I see some more folks jumping in, so this is great. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Pauline from Smoky Vancouver, BC. My fingers are crossed for you guys that, that we get some rain over in that area. I'm an Oregonian, so I've been keeping my eye out on these terrible wildfires and just really hoping that this next couple of days will bring some rain and no wind. So my thoughts are with you and anybody else on the west coast of the United States and other parts of the United States. So I've been looking at the news lately and it's some weird weather patterns. And Gloria is here. Gloria, you shared with your sister on Facebook. Thank you very much for that. So welcome everybody. I'm just really glad that you're all here. Tonight we're going to be playing with a couple of stamps and dies and some stencils. I've got inks, I've got watercolors, I've got kind of a lot for us tonight because I couldn't keep my myself limited to just the stamps and the dies themselves. So let's take a look at what we've got tonight. So first of all, we are going to be playing with the Classic Beauty stamp set. This is what I think of as a classic Altenew stamp set. So it's a nice big floral motif, which we all love. And it is a layering motif. So you can see you stamp layer 1, 2 on top, 3 on top of that, 4 on top of that, and you'll get a dimensional look. And that makes more sense when you can see the layering guide here that they always include on the back of the package. So you'll stamp the base piece and then this, and then you'll get an end result that looks like this. You don't have to do all of those layers in that order. You can skip a couple of layers if you want to, but this is the overall intended effect, but there's lots of different varieties. As you can see, you've also got the stem. That's going to be a 3-part layering process, and you get that beautiful shading. And you've got a 3-leaf leaf cluster here, and then a single leaf as well. What I also like is that they give you little tips on what colors they use. So if you want to achieve this exact look, you will get that. They also have lots of really nice sentiments on here. So wishing you a beautiful day. Of all the roses, I pick you. Like a rose, our friendship is beautiful. And your beauty shines from within. So some really nice, encouraging, good friendship quotes. I would suggest too that the rose can be mixed and matched with lots of other sentiment stamps and dies that you may have in your collection. Also with this, you're always going to get a nice big trifold, and this will have project ideas in it for you. So the vase is another stamp set, and you can mix and match your stamps as well in between different stamp sets. And then they give you some inspiration, show you how to use it with a stencil. This is using just a portion of the layering process, so it's just one layer. And we'll look at doing some of that. And then they always give you kind of a recipe book in there. So this is really handy. Comes with the stamp set so that you've got lots of inspiration. Also, we have a coordinating die set. Now this is going to be really nice if you like to create more dimensional looks. If you like to maybe pop up some elements on foam tape, this makes it really easy. I love the leaves. I think you could do a lot of really cool things with those leaves as well. So those are the main things that we're going to be playing with. Now I have to say, I got some stencils out because I wanted to create kind of a patterned background. So I'm also going to be using, this is the Flowing Drops stencil. We're going to be working with that. And I also have a little trick with the beach towel stripes. I really, really love this stencil. This is one that I use quite a lot. And I have a little trick for using that stencil with metallic watercolor. So I'm going to share that with you too. Okay, other than that, I've got lots of inks, I've got some paints, I've got some fun mediums to play with. First of all, I'm just going to show you quickly. This is the first card that we're going to take a look at. And so I'm going to step you through the process. You can see I've done all of the layers of the flower, and I want you to see kind of how that's done. And then we'll talk about the rest of the card on here. So if that sounds good to you, I'm going to tilt down the camera and then we can get started. Again, welcome to everybody who has joined us while I've been chatting. And I'm just really delighted that you are all here. So welcome everybody. Okay, I'm going to turn down my camera, so bear with me for a sec. Hi, Penny. It's nice to see you. To see your name anyway. Can't see you, but I can see your name. That's always nice. And Pauline, the metallic. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about some metallics today. Okay, so first of all, here's again another look at the card. Now you'll notice that I've got this popped up on some foam tape. So these have been die cut separately. And we're going to talk about doing that layering process. So I'm going to grab my Misty, which is my stamp positioner. You don't have to use a stamp positioner for this. If you've got some really good aim, I just find that it makes it a lot easier to get everything aligned. And of course, if you need to stamp and restamp, it makes it simpler as well. Okay, now with our stamp set, remember, you're going to want to have, if you're doing all four of these, you're going to want to have 4 different colors of ink. And I like to work with the smaller ink pads because in those 4 sets of inks, then you always get like a coordinating range that works really nicely together. So for this flower, I'm going to be using the Frosty Pink. That'll be my lightest color. Coral Berry. I've got Heartbeat, and then I have Ruby Red. That's going to be my darkest color. So I'm going to have all those set aside, and then I'll start with my lightest color and my bottom stamp, and then just keep getting progressively darker here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off. Now, one thing I also want to point out with this stamp, if you have a stamp that has a lot of surface, like smooth surface layer, it really is a good idea before you use these to condition them with an eraser. You just need to rub an eraser on there and then maybe stamp it a couple of times, and that just gets it, they call it being more conditioned. So it can help you get a nicer, crisper impression the first time around. Okay, so I've got that on here, and I'm going to be starting with my Frosty Pink. And this is a nice light color, so I'll probably go ahead and stamp it twice just so that I make sure that I've got enough color on here that we can really see. Okay, so that Frosty Pink, and then press this down. So you can see I've got a shape that looks a little bit like a flower. You kind of have to trust me on this one. So let me clean that off, and then I'll go on to the second layer. And now what I need to do is just position this right on top of my first layer. And I will say that this is a lot easier to do if you can stand, but unfortunately I'm sitting, so I'm sitting and I'm leaning, so I'm going to hope for the best here. And this one I'll do in the coral berry. So this is a slightly darker color. And this will make things stand out. So you'll start to see the layering process on here. Okay, and again, I might stamp this one twice too. We'll see how it came out. Yeah, so you can see I've got my second layer on here. Now, I'm going to do a second go with this, which I often like to do just to make sure that I've got a nice crisp amount of color. Okay, so you can see that layering and that dimension on there. Now I could actually stop here. I could die cut this and I would have a really nice element that I could use. So you can stop at certain points in the layering process as well. But we're going to keep going here. Okay, I'll pull the third image off, the third layer. And again, just need to position this down. This one is a little bit easier to see, and I'm just following the lines of the stamp and arranging things to sort of fit in where some of those lines are. And this one, let's see, this one is going to be done with Heartbeat. So let's close this up. And I think you can see even more now that those three separate layers. So I've got a very pale pink, and then I've got my middle layer, and now I'm getting a little bit darker. Again, though, I want to do this a second time. Okay, there we go. Really pretty. And again, I could leave it at this point too. And I always like to point that out to people because sometimes you get going, you're in a hurry, and maybe you don't have time to do that next layer, or maybe you just want to try something else, try something a little bit different. There's almost always with these layering stamps from Altenew, there are variations. Okay, now my last layer, let's get this organized on here. And my last layer I'm going to do with Ruby Red. So this is my darkest, most dramatic red. This is a beautiful red, by the way, and it's a great red to have on hand for lots of flower images. Okay, and there we go. So now this is where you can really, really see the different shades and layers on here. Okay, so that is how easy it is to create the layered flower part, but let's take a look at the stem and we'll see how we can use this. Now, what I can do at this point is take my dies. So remember, we've got the die set on hand as well. And what I could do then, hang on, got my die. I'm not going to get it too close to the magnets. I could just simply pop that down and run it through my die cutting machine and I would be ready to go. So that's one option, and that's what I did for my card, but let's do a little variation. Let's just go ahead and do our stem on here. So again, I need to get my stamp set. Now you'll notice on here that they have labeled each one of these. So A1, A2, A3, A4, that comes in handy, especially when you get to some of these smaller, kind of more mysterious elements. You can see here with the stem that you have B1, B2, and then B3 is that funny little part of the top of the stem. Okay, so I'm going to start with B1. And I'm just going to kind of position this down here. It does not really line up perfectly, which is nice because it means that you can sort of shift the stem around in a couple of different ways if you want it. So it's not meant to be too precise, which is nice. Okay, I'll slide that down here. And for this, I'll start off with the Sweet Leaf as my light color. Okay, and I'll pop this down. And there you can see, really nice green. And I'm going to do this one again too. This is one of the beauties of the Misty, is that you can really do as many times as you want to. So if you ever find that you've got a little bald patch in your stamping, which happens, then you can just stamp it again. Okay, so that is the first layer. And then the second layer, I'll pop this down and just aligning that. And I'll do a second color of green here. And this one I'm going to do with frayed leaf. And let's ink this up. Frayed leaf, as the name would suggest, is a really great leaf color. If you like to stamp flowers, you know, having some nice leaf and stem colors will really come in handy. So you can see now I've got the shading on here, so that's working out. And then the last layer that I will do is this funny little bit here. And that one, you just need to kind of nest on top a little bit more to one side. Okay, I think I've got that right. And this one, I'm going to stamp this with just green. I love the names of the Altenew inks, so we're gonna look at some really nice inks later with really delicious and tempting names. This one, I just think it's just green. That's what it is. It's just green. You can come up with your own fancy name, but it is a really nice basic green. If you're going toward Christmas card making, by the way, the ruby red and the just green are perfect. Okay, so now I've got my flower and my stem stamped on here. So you can see how nicely those colors and images come together, and it's really a pretty simple and easy layering system. So if you're new to layering, or if layering intimidates you, this might be a great one to get started with. Okay, so again, I mentioned with this one, we didn't do any of the die cutting, but on my original card, bring this back in, I did do die cutting, and I also added some leaves here. And so everything is die cut and mounted up separately, except for these two leaves. They're just glued down. But the main flower is up on some foam tape to give a bit of dimension. Now this piece right here, you can see the shine of that. This is washi tape, and it is a beautiful washi tape. It's the Deco Lines, and it's a nice wide one. I think this is like 1 3/4 inches or so, but it's a beautiful design. You get a lot on the roll, and I find that the width of it is just perfect for creating a border like this. And it just means that instead of rifling through all of your pattern papers and stuff to find a snippet that will work, black and gold is pretty much always going to work, especially with roses. Now I've got the stamped sentiment on here. I just used black for that. And then I've done some spattering on the background paper. And it all comes together really pretty easily. Now with this one, I used the Hello Beautiful stamp from the same stamp set. I was thinking though, a wedding card or anniversary, or certainly this could also work for a sympathy card too. We don't like to have to make those, but sometimes we do, and it can always be really difficult. So if you were swapping out the sentiment to say with sympathy or thinking of you or wishing you well, I think this would be a really nice outline to use, or layout to use. Okay, so that is our first card, and you can see just how easy it is to get a really beautiful effect. So, and quite simply and easily too. Okay, so I have another card project that I want to show you. I'm going to move aside my Misty, and let's take a look at another way that you can get a different look with your roses. And here you can see I've got my stenciling going on. Now this stencil is one of the ones I showed you earlier. Let me find it here. This is the Flowing Drops stencil. And this is one that I just have on hand almost all the time because I love having just kind of easy swirly motif. This can go sophisticated. It can also be nice and playful. So we're going to use it as playful this time, and we're going to be using a couple of different ink colors. And I think I saw somebody saying that this could go for masculine, and I think you are absolutely right. Oh, Sue, you have the flowing drops. It's a great stencil. It's a really, really nice one to work with. Okay, so I'm going to grab a piece of white cardstock. I'm just working on my craft mat here. And I'm going to grab some masking tape to tape this down. And thank you guys for sharing. Aura, my dear, if you were there, would you mind giving me a little wave? I just want to make sure I didn't see Auram's name pop up. So I'm hoping that she is with us, and I've just missed seeing her name come up because I've been talking so much, which is entirely possible. Okay, so I've got this secured down onto my white cardstock. Do you guys have these? So these are ink blenders from Altenew. This is a great way to do your stenciling, and I'm gonna say, I have to confess, when they sent me these, I kind of thought, oh, you know, I've got those little foam squares. I'm fine. I don't really need to have a fancy blender. And then I tried these, and my goodness, it makes stenciling so much easier and inking so much easier. So I can tell what all the fuss is about this, and I will have to apologize to Altenew. I really did think like, oh, you know, I don't think I need anything this big, but I'm enjoying it. So let me show you how easy it is to work this. And I think I saw somebody say we don't have any links posted so far. I'm a little concerned that Auram's not with us tonight, even though I thought she was. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going with this, not to leave you hanging. And with this one, I'm going to be stenciling. I'm going to use the Coral Berry, and let's do some ruby red as well, and maybe also some heartbeat. So again, these 3 inks. Now you'll notice my blending brush is pretty stained. You can clean it. I've cleaned this several times. Just rinse it off with some water and use a little bit of mild detergent with it. But mine are generally stained, and I often keep like one of these per color family. So I'll have one for pinks and reds, one for blues and light blue and dark blue, and so on. I need one for blue though, because blue tends to be a color I use a lot. So I'm just brushing the coral onto my brush, and I'm going to gently roll this on. So you can see how nicely this goes on and how easily. So that's the coral. Let's add some of the heartbeat. And again, just kind of blend this in to some areas. And it's a really nice soft blending. So you don't have to press or kind of worry about it catching on any of the little peaks and pointy bits of the stencil. That's always tricky too if you're using different kinds of tools. I just really love this, and it's so comfortable in your hand too. If you have any hand issues or maybe like arthritis or something, this may be a really good option for you. I'm not too worried about contaminating my inks because I am keeping everything in the same color family. Okay, so I've got my blending on here. I can just put this back in, and also this little holder means that I don't have an inky brush kind of rolling around on my work surface. Okay, and then I'm just going to lift that off, and you can see the design. So really crisp, really pretty. I just absolutely love this. And what a great combination with something like this. Okay, so I've got one more little bit on here that I want to show you, and that is with metallic watercolors. So you know that Altenew has a set of metallic watercolors, and you've got lots and lots of different colors in here to choose from. Lots of really pretty golds, bronzes, and so on. And the color that I'm going to use for this is the Enchanted Gold. So the Enchanted Gold is a great basic gold. I mean, don't mean basic in a pejorative sense. It's just a really nice classic gold. So what I'm going to do is mist the pan. You can take these out of the pan set. and grab a water brush and just make a wash of this. And make sure it's watery enough so that you can hold this up on top. Just hold it perpendicular. You guys have probably seen me do spattering a lot before, often with black ink, like I did on the first card, or showed in the first card. But take a look when you do it with that metallic ink on there, or metallic paint. Look how pretty that is. Oh, I see that Orem is here. Hi, Orem. Thank you for being there. I was starting to panic in my mind and think, how can I get a hold of Orem without making everybody wait? So I'm super glad you're with us. Okay, so there you can see that beautiful shine on there. Now all I need to do is let this dry, and then I'm ready to use it as my background and just kind of mop up any spatters that have gone around here. Now one other thing I want to show you with this card is that I've used the floral, but just in 2 different layers. So instead of doing the 4-layer process, I've only done 2. So I do want to show you that because it's a really easy adaptation onto our kind of classic design. Let me find a piece here. And for this, I'm just using a smooth white cardstock, nothing really fancy. So for this one, let's see, I'm going to do 2 and 4. So A2, which is the 2nd layer, and then I'm also going to do an A4. And I'm going to do Heartbeat and Ruby Red with these. I'm sticking with my reds for this rose. Heartbeat and Ruby Red. Let's turn this around here. And pop this down. And I'll start again with my lighter of the 2 colors. So this is Heartbeat. Okay. And again, you can see that this would be a shape that you could easily use on its own. And in fact, I'm going to show you a card later that does use that on its own. But for now, we're going to pair it with another layer from the same set. Okay, I'm going to do that again. And I'm just restamping it to get that second press of color. Okay, so that is the A2. And then we'll reach for A4. And pop that one down. And again, this time I'm using the Ruby Red. Oops, there we go. I'm going to use the Ruby Red, which is a nice, crisp, dramatic red. And again, this is why those sets of inks are always really nice to use. Okay, so there you can see I've got a bit of the shading. I've got that white as the background, and then this way, when I put my die on to die cut around it, it's going to come out perfectly. Okay, let me clean this up, and I can show you another second look at it so I can hold it up for you a little bit better. So there you can see. And then all I need to do is grab my coordinating die and pop that on there, run it through my die cutting machine, and I've got my flower. And again, I've done the separate elements here. I've got the leaf and I've got the stem on here. And with these, I'm using bamboo and parrot, so some lighter green colors. And you can really see the difference as opposed to the other one that we did earlier, right? So you can get some real variation, even if you're working with the same ink colors. Lots of us have lots of different colors of inks, but sometimes, you know, when you're first starting out, especially with stamping, you have a little bit more limited palette. So it's nice to be able to see that you can get some different looks using the same inks in your stash. Okay, so this is the second card that I wanted to share with you. Now we've been using a lot of beautiful pinks and reds, but this time I want to switch things up. And Sue, I think you were talking about masculine cards. Well, this is one that I think could go that way. I also think that this is just a really nice kind of a vintage effect. So two things I wanted to point out about this. First of all, those painted stripes on the background. So I'm going to show how to do an easy painted striped background. And then also the layering here. Now, this is not your kind of classic pink or, you know, even yellow roses, but I do love having a vintage effect on here. So this is using some different colors, maybe a little bit unexpected. And this is what I was talking about being yummy color, a yummy ink pad color. So we're going to talk about that too. But let's start out with our background because I want to show you this. Now with creating stripes as a background, stripes and plaid for another example. These go great with floral. So if the next time that you're in like a, I don't know, like a Bed Bath & Beyond or some kind of home furnishing store, if you go into the bedding section, you'll notice a lot of the bedding sets will have a floral pattern combined with a geometric pattern. So like a floral duvet with striped pillowcases or something like that. And the reason is that florals and geometrics just balance each other visually really nicely. And that's why I always like to have either striped or plaid or some kind of geometric background when I'm working with florals. Creates a nice balance. But I'm not that great at freehand painting stripes. So in this case, I'm going to rely on one of my favorite stencils, which is the beach towel stripes. And this is going to give me that cool striped effect. Okay, so again, I'm going to pop this down onto my white cardstock. And looking around for my tape, here it is. It never fails during these lives that I will end up with my carefully organized things just kind of all over my work surface. So I have to try and remind myself where I put things down. Okay, the tape is going over to my left. There we go. I'm going to pop this down. And actually what I'm going to do, I've got the stripes going horizontally. I want them going vertically to me. So let's put this way. That's going to make it easier to do the painting. And for this, I'm going to use a flat brush. Now this is just one I picked up at the craft store a million years ago. It's a number 16. But you can notice with a flat brush that it has, you know, flat bristles as opposed to a round brush, something like that, for example. And it means that I can use this to paint along through the open areas of the stencil. Now I've got some wide stripes and some narrow stripes, which is going to give me a really nice variety. Now for this one, I'm going to paint the stripes with citrine. So again, this is one of the metallic watercolors. And all of them have a label on them, so you can take them out of the pan and you'll be able to still keep in mind which colors you're using. Okay, and I'll put a little bit of water in there for us. And I want this to get wet, but not too wet. I don't want it really drippy and wet, otherwise it can seep under my stencil. So I like to kind of make sure that I've got a nice consistency here. And then what I'm going to do is just work with the flow of the stencil. Okay, so it's almost, this is starting to look like dry brushing, so it's getting drier, which is fine. And I can hold the brush sideways. Let's get a little more water on there. Need just a bit more. And it's awfully dark in this area, so let's get it a little bit more streaky. Okay. Now I can pull this off, and you'll see that I've got some nice metallic shine on there. And I've got some nice evenly spaced stripes. They are straight. They're not wandering off either up or down. And again, I'm able to get some really thin stripes and some thicker stripes on there too. This is just a really simple and easy way to take advantage of those stencils and also save yourself a lot of time when you're doing backgrounds, because as you can see, this takes very little time. Can be used with your metallic stencil or your metallic paints. It can also be used with any of your other paints too. So keep this one in mind if you like a nice, easy striped background. So this is the first layer of that. Now I'm going to go back to that enchanted gold and maybe just refresh this a little bit, get my smaller brush, and then let's get some spatters on here. So you can get a nice combination on there. It does have a vintage look to it, I think, but it's not too dark, it's not too overwhelming. It's just a nice, subtle, shimmery effect. And I love being able to combine two different metallics together. So you've got a lot of golds and soft warm tones in that metallic watercolor set. This is a great way to put them to use together. Okay, I'm going to set that aside to dry. And then let's take another look at the card. So you can see where I've got my spatters on here and that stripe. So the stripes are going horizontally. Of course, you can have them going vertically too. But let's also take a look at our flower on here. So again, this is using some different colors. And we were talking about, I do love the name, Just Green. It's just green, guys. That's all it is. But if the Altenew folks are feeling a little bit more hungry or imaginative, then they come up with things like vanilla cream, almond butter, and my favorite, milk chocolate. So they have a dark chocolate already. I'm glad to see the milk chocolate out there as well. These are the three colors that I'm going to use for my flower. So I'm going to get a piece of cardstock here. Let's see. I'll use this one and pop this down in place. And again, I'm going to be using not all of the layers, but 3 of the layers of the stamp, the flower. So let me grab my stamps here. And for this one, I'm going to be using the base layer. This is going to be in vanilla cream. Then I'm going to use the 3rd layer and the 4th layer. So I'm skipping A2. And the reason I'm skipping A2 is because this has a lot of coverage on it. And I want my base layer, which will be that beautiful vanilla cream, I want that to show up more. So I don't want to cover any of it up. I want this to be nice and creamy, and then I want the next two just to add some definition to it. So let's see how this works out. Okay, I'll put down my 1st layer. And this I'll go with the vanilla cream, which sounds like I'd like to have some in my coffee at some point. And I'll put this color down, and it's a nice soft, again, kind of a vintage look. I'm going to do another round of this. So it's not a bright yellow. Altenew has a lot of really nice bright yellows, Honey Drizzle and Citrus Burst, but this has a more vintage look to it, just a little bit more antique. Okay, so that's our 1st layer. And then skipping the 2nd one and moving on to the 3rd. Pull that guy off and position it down. Again, doing my best here. And this one will be with our almond butter. Okay, so this is a nice, another nice, delicious flavor, color. It's late evening here in Hamburg, Germany, and I'm starting to get a little bit ready for dessert. So I'm inspired. So there we go. We've got our 2nd layer on here with that almond butter. Now we'll go for the 3rd, which is, of course, our milk chocolate. Let me pop that one down. So that's going to be this 3rd one, which has the most kind of definition to it. And let's grab this and position this one. There we go. And get our milk chocolate. Ink that up. And then you can see again how this definition, I mean, it's so clever, this idea, and whoever is designing these stamps, look how beautiful that is. Super simple. And again, you can see because we skipped that second layer of the stamp that you're getting that beautiful cream from the vanilla cream that really does create most of the surface area on there. So it's not like having a brown flower, which I sort of thought, ooh, I hope that doesn't come across the wrong way. But I think it does have just a really sweet vintage look to it. Now, for the bottom part of this, I'm going to add the stem, but I'm only using this little portion here. So let me just scoot this aside. And I just need to kind of plant it a little bit. I always like to have something with these realistic flowers, something to sort of anchor this. So let's pick a good vintagey green, and my pick is always going to be olive. I love this green. It's just such a nice soft and subtle green, and it works perfectly with this color combination. So that's my flower, and for this one, for this card, I didn't do any die cutting. I just simply mounted it up. Well, I stamped the sentiment, and then I just mounted that up onto my stenciled background. Let me take a look at this one. It's almost dry, not quite, but that spattering is almost dry. So then you can just put the two of these together, or you could have them going this way, of course, and you have a really nice combination. So let me show you the card again. So here we go. We've got also some sequins on here, and then I've used a bit of the embroidery thread. I like using these when I'm working with cards using the metallic watercolors because I think it just sets things off really nicely. So this is the Satin Gold Sequin Collection. So this is where you're getting lots of different sizes of sequins. So you got a lot of little baby ones in there, regular size, and then a nice medium. And then I'm also using the Enchanted Gold embroidery thread. And I just wrap that around twice and then put this piece up onto some foam tape. And you can see that it all comes together really pretty nicely. Now you can mix and match your color combinations too with different metallic paints. So bring back my paint set just quickly. And you can see in here that you could do some beautiful combinations with some blues and greens, with that purple, and then of course it's getting into some more rose tones too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can combine those, but I like that stencil trick. I think that works really nicely. So that is our third card project. Now I'm going to get this little bit of stray ink on here. And I've got one more that I want to show you, one more card project. Oh, actually, I have one more sample that I'm going to show you, and then we'll do another demo. This card, I haven't finished it yet because I don't think it's finished, but I thought I would show it to you anyway, just so that you can see. This is using I think it was the Enchanted Gold to do the stripes on here, and then some more spattering with a little bit darker. And also using the Simply Friend die from Altenew, which I'm going to use in my next card. And I just popped this together really quickly, pretty quickly and easily, mounted it up onto a craft card base. I don't think it's finished. I'm not quite sure what else I'm going to add to it, or maybe when I look at it tomorrow, it will be finished. Sometimes that happens too. But I did want to show you that you can get some really different looks using that same stripey technique on there. Oh, she said, I can see adding some leaves. Yes, definitely. I thought about that too, and I've got some leaves already die cut and was kind of playing around with that too, so maybe I'm on the right track. Okay, now our fourth and final card is a card that I copied, actually. In the olden days of scrapbooking, we used to call it scrap lifting, when you saw someone's scrapbook layout and you liked it, so you copied their layout, but of course you're using different photos and different colors and things like that. And then as we got more into card making, we call it card lifting. So when you take the ideas that someone's showing you and adapt them to your own, kind of calling it card lifting. So this is my card lifted design, and I have to give a big thank you to Virginia Liu. She had a card that really inspired me, and it was on the Altenew website. So if you go and you look at the, so the stamps that we're using are the Classic Beauty stamps. If you go and look at that product page, you will see a card that looks something like this, and it is by Virginia Liu. That's Liu, L-U. So I have to say a big thank you to her because she really inspired me, and I never would have thought to do this. But of course, I wanted to share it with you, and we need to give Virginia credit for it. So thank you, Virginia. And let's get started with this. So this is a pretty easy process to do, and I'm just going to take a big piece of white cardstock and pop this down. Grab this magnet. This magnet's always the tricky one. It's really heavy. Now you'll notice on here that I'm stamping only one layer. So I'm not doing any of the layering part of the stamp set. Instead, I'm just using, this is the, let me check my notes, A2. So this is the second layer. And then I've got some of those leaves on there. Now what I want to do is stamp it a couple of times in some different colors. So I'm going to use the A2, which is this one, which is the basic shape of the rose. You can tell what it is, but it's not the layering side of this. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that down here. And the colors that I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to use Coralberry, Crimson, and Heartbeat. So let's grab those, Heartbeat and Crimson. So I've got my three together here. And we'll just do Heartbeat for this one. And again, just pop that down like so. So I've got a nice bright color. I'm going to do it again just to be sure. And if you're wondering why I'm always stamping twice, it really is just to get that second layer of intensity on my ink colors. And it also helps me just make sure that I've got everything, all of the areas colored where I want it to go. Okay, so I've got one flower there. I'm going to move my magnets aside and I'll put this down in another area. And that was with Heartbeat. So this one I will stamp with the Coralberry. Okay, Coralberry. And of course you could change the angle of some of the stamps if you wanted to as well. I kind of liked how they were all a little bit more uniform. Okay, so we'll do this. That's with the Coralberry. Kind of clean that off, and then let's see, let's put one, let's see, where should we do it? Let's put another one here. And we'll do that one in Crimson. And you can really have these going in any different colors. I'm keeping with the same kind of color palette, but of course you could mix things up and have really different colors going on, maybe reds and yellows and blues. Whatever color roses come in, you can use. Okay, and let's do one more. I'll do one more down here at the bottom. And I'll vary that one. And I'm going off the edge on a lot of these too. I do want to get this bit mopped up just because I know that red will end up somewhere I don't want it to go. Let's do Heartbeat with this one again. And you can keep going with this. I mean, you could do a whole, you know, background for your scrapbook page or for cards or larger projects. It's really just a matter of kind of repeating the process. Okay, oop, one more time. Okay, so I think you're getting the gist of it. I would normally do another one up here in the corner, but I don't want to keep you here all night. Well, actually, I'm going to keep you here, not all night, but I'm going to do another one up here just to create some balance. And let's do that one also in ruby red. Okay, there we go. So then for my leaf colors, I could go with kind of standard leaf colors if I wanted, but I really liked Virginia's idea of using gray rather than greens. So I'm going to use this leaf shape right here because, again, like the A2 part of the flower, this is going to give me a basic leaf shape, but without the layering on it. Okay, so now I've got some little pieces that I'm going to use as masks, and I die cut a bunch of these. So I use the cutting die not to do the actual die cutting, but to die cut my masks. So let's see, got these going the right way. I'll pop this down. Struggle with my magnet here. And let's see, I'm going to put this one here. And I'm also going to use this second smaller leaf, which is this part right here. And this is going to work the same way with the flowers, where we're just moving things around. So the gray that I'm using is the evening gray. And again, you can use whatever colors you want to. I like the evening gray because I think it's just a pretty and very subtle look. But it's really one of my favorite gray inks. Okay, so got those down. While I've got this masked off, maybe I'll come over here, put this one down like so, and another one here. And you're just going to be working your way around the area, masking things off and layering. And we all remember masking from the olden days of stamping. We used to do it with Post-it notes. Now we can do it with perfectly cut, die cut pieces, which is also really nice. Another good use of your cutting dies. Okay, I'm going to move this over so you can see where that's peeking out. You can get that beautiful contrast. I'm going to move this one over. I'll move the magnet with it, and I can move this over and the magnet with it. And again, same process, overlapping and putting down at various angles. And again, the gray that I'm using is the evening gray. Okay, so there we go. And I think you are getting the gist of this. So I'm going to pull everything off so that we can take a look and see how this is coming together. So then you can just keep going with your leaves if you want to. You could, of course, tilt any of these elements on here as well. Now what I did with my card is I just simply stamped one of the sentiments directly on top, and then I added that friend cutting die, and that's just done with black and glued directly on top. So you can get some really nice backgrounds on here. So I have to give Virginia Lou another thank you and another shout out for inspiring me to do this. I honestly would never have thought to do it, and I really, really love this technique. So thank you, Virginia. Okay, so that is our fourth and final card today. So what I'm going to do is tilt up the camera so that we can see each other again. Hello again. And I'm going to show you one more time the products, a couple of the products that we used, and we'll whiz through the cards before I say goodnight to you. Okay, so we were working with the, hang on, got a stray stamp here. with the Classic Beauty stamp set. So this is the flower that we put to good use tonight. Various leaves and quotes and sentiments on here as well. Don't forget you've got all of your layering options and inspiration in there too. We also had the Classic Beauty cutting dies that matched, which worked really well. I've got my inky stencils over here to one side. So that beach towel stripe stencil, which works so beautifully with our paintbrush, and then the flowing drops. Let's see if I can find this so that you can see it a little bit better. The flowing drops, not to forget our handy little blender. And again, if you haven't tried those blending brushes, I suggest you give them a try because they really are nice to use. A couple of other things that I put to use today, my metallic watercolor set, and that's how we got those nice backgrounds spattered and striped. Let me see, what else did I have? Lots and lots of different inks. Oh, the Friend and the Friend cutting die on here. So we've got a couple more minutes. You still have an option to share tonight's live while we are live. And now, now that we know that Orem is here, and that's what everybody was worried about too, is that she would be here so that we could choose a winner at the end of tonight's show for the $15 gift certificate to Altenew. So if you have not shared, please do, and then just post down below. So here's our first card that we did, just working with the stamping the way it is designed to be used and adding in a little bit of the washi tape. And then we did some stenciling, some spattering. Here's where you can really see that shine of the spatter, metallic watercolor spatter on there, using only a couple of layers of our rose and then one of the sentiments. And we also did a really fun different color combination, something a little bit more vintagey looking, and also in combination with our stripes stencil. I really like I love that yellow, that really beautiful shine on there. And then we've also got, this is one that I just showed you quickly so that you could see another look for those stripes. Again, I'm going to figure something else out on here. I think it needs a little something more, but ran out of time tonight. And then our final card project, thank you to Virginia for the inspiration of using the elements as backgrounds. So, that was a busy hour. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you had a lot of fun. If you are in areas of the United States where the weather has been going bonkers, I'm thinking of you, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that things will settle down, especially for my friends and family back home in Oregon. So thinking about you. And thank you again, no matter where you are watching from, for joining us tonight. Thank you to Orem for being here as well. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. I will be back again in a couple of weeks with another YouTube Live, but we are always doing these every Thursday, so do make sure that you drop by and join us for a little crafting session. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful night, wonderful weekend, and I will see you again next time. Okay, take care.